Today I'm making a really simple summery dinner with a grilled flank steak that has a chili rub on the outside, nothing too spicy, and I'm going to serve it alongside some rice, corn, and beans. It is a beautiful side dish, but it also doubles as a vegetarian main in case you have people over, because this is a perfect casual entertaining menu. And then to top it off, brings the house down every time. It's a key lime cheesecake, but it's an icebox cheesecake. So if it's hot outside, you don't have to have the oven on the whole time, just a little bit to set that crust, and then it sets up in the fridge. It's brilliant. And that's what we're gonna start with today, because you need to let it sit in the fridge for at least 6 hours. So we're gonna start by blooming some gelatin. So here I have a little bit of heavy cream. This is 4 tablespoons of heavy cream. And this is a whole package of gelatin. Now, when I first made this recipe, I worried that all this gelatin would make the cheesecake have kind of a rubbery texture, which I don't like. It is so light and fluffy, the texture of this cheesecake, it kind of knocks your socks off. All right, so a whole packet of gelatin right into the cream. I'm gonna whisk it in there, make sure that gelatin gets nicely hydrated. And we're gonna set this aside about 5 minutes. And then before we add it to the cheesecake, of course, we'll melt that gelatin. All right, now on to the rest of the filling. Here I have my trusty stand mixer. Gonna add more heavy cream. This is 1.25 cups of heavy cream. To this, we're gonna add some sugar, 2/3 of a cup of sugar. And the great thing about this is it's not a super sweet cheesecake. You really can taste the lime flavor, which is what I love. Gonna put this on the mixer, medium-high speed, until you get soft peaks on the cream. All right, you can see that cream has got some structure. You can see the tines of the whisk and how they're leaving trails, which means it's the right time to add the cream cheese. Here I have 1 pound of cream cheese, and this is the full fat stuff. This is the real deal. You don't want to use low fat here because the cheesecake just won't set up in the refrigerator. It'll be really soupy. So here I have 1 pound of cream cheese, as I said. It's been sitting at room temperature. You can see how soft it is. And having the cream cheese be nice and soft like this is really key. Don't microwave it, just let it hang out at room temperature. This way it'll incorporate really easily into the whipped cream. All right, so with the mixer on, medium-low, I'm gonna start adding the cream cheese a piece at a time until it's nice and combined. Nice, all right. And again, you wanna mix it on medium-low just to get that cream cheese combined. Looks like it's mostly there. And now I'm gonna add a little bit of salt, just a pinch of salt. All right, here comes the lime. This is 3 tablespoons of lime juice. Now, I mentioned at the top that this was a key lime cheesecake. Truth is, you can use key limes if you have them. Up here in Boston, they're a little hard to get and they're quite expensive. And I found that just using regular Persian limes delivers a delicious flavor. So I don't really worry that I'm not using key limes. And if you want to have truth in menus, then just call it a lime cheesecake. It brings the house down no matter what you use. All right, so I'm going to put this on medium-low, add the 3 tablespoons of lime juice, and just let it all come together. All right, make sure all those clumps of cream cheese get down into the bowl so that it can get touched by the whisk. Now, I'm gonna turn it on to medium-high, crank it, and let it get really smooth. It takes a few minutes. While this is whipping, it's time to melt that gelatin on the stove. All right, that's looking pretty good. Now I'm gonna put this over medium-high. We're gonna add the melted gelatin mixture. I'm also gonna add some more lime flavor. This is 2 tablespoons of finely grated lime zest. We're gonna add it right in and we're gonna whip that mixture till it's nice and smooth and airy. That takes a few minutes. All right, that looks good and airy and smooth, and it smells like limes. This filling is ready to go on the crust, and this crust is terrific. It's made with animal crackers. So you grind up animal crackers to get 1 cup of crumbs, then you toss it with 3 tablespoons of sugar, teaspoon of lime zest, and 4 tablespoons of melted butter. Then you pack it in the bottom of this springform pan, and you bake it at 325 for just 13 minutes until it's golden and fragrant. Then you let it cool completely, and then it's ready for the cheesecake filling. And that's the only baking you have to do for this. You can do it well in advance. You can even do it in the morning if it's gonna be a hot day. This cheesecake is so good. Every time I make it, it reminds me of my father-in-law who loved key lime, everything key lime cookies, key lime pie, of course. He would have loved this cake. All right, into the pan it goes. All right, now, I think one of the nicest parts about a cheesecake is that sort of mirror smooth top. And it's hard to get that with an icebox cheesecake because how it goes in the fridge is how it's gonna look when it comes out because the gelatin will set it up. So I have a little bit of a trick to get a smooth finish. One, you can wrap it on the counter like this, gets any big air bubbles out and smooths the top. The second trick is to get some hot water in a mug, which I have back here. Hot water, so I have some hot water in a mug. Have a little offset spatula. Gonna heat up the spatula in the hot water because that'll help melt the gelatin, and then you can just really smooth the top. Gets most of those wrinkles out. A few wrinkles are okay. If your cream cheese filling is a little on the stiff side because maybe it wasn't as soft, this is a great, great tip. That looks a lot better. Wrap it again on the counter. Into the fridge this goes at least 6 hours. Overnight is best, but it actually holds well for up to 3 days. Now normally you'd wrap something like this with plastic wrap, but I have never been able to wrap it with plastic wrap without the plastic sticking to the top and marring that surface. So I skipped that step. Into the fridge it goes.
Love our in-depth reviews? Get the latest from our reviews team delivered straight to your inbox. Our well-equipped cook newsletter provides top product picks, no-nonsense buying guides, and must-try recipes. No extra fluff, just the smartest ways to shop, save, and cook. Sign up for free now at americastestkitchen.com/newsletter.
All right, so that cheesecake is nestled away in the fridge and it's time to get started on the main course. Now this is a very simple meal, but I love it because the flavors are good. It's great if you're having casual company over and it's easy to make. So we're gonna start by making the beans and the rice. It's a one-pot deal. So over here I have a nice 12-inch nonstick skillet heating up over medium-high heat, a tablespoon of olive oil. To that I'm gonna add one nice finely chopped onion. We're just gonna cook this about 5 minutes till they're softened and lightly browned. All right, spread them out. All right, so now let's talk about corn because we're gonna have beans, rice, and corn, the magic trio. Now you can use frozen corn if you want, but fresh corn just makes this dish sparkle. And as I mentioned, this side dish, delicious as a side, great as a vegetarian main. Growing up, we used to grow our own corn. In upstate New York, not super easy. It's a short growing season, but I remember the corn tasted so good. Now I'm talking back in the 70s. You'd put the water on to boil before you pick the corn and it was so fresh. This corn looks pretty good too. It's local. All right, now I'm gonna cut the corn off the cobs. Lots of way to do this. I see lots of gadgets out there that help you do it. I'm not a gadget person for this. Big bowl, that's all I like, a big bowl to capture all the kernels that are flying off the cob. Little paring knife. Just gonna cut all the kernels right off the cob into the bowl. There you go. Get any ones on the very ends, that looks good. So just 2 ears of corn, plenty for this dish. All right, that looks good. Gonna set this aside. Those onions need a few more minutes. Gives me time to focus on the topping for the rice and beans. Now, I love this little topping. I make it and put it on top of everything. It's just tomatoes with some herbs and scallions. Today I'm gonna use cherry tomatoes, or these are grape tomatoes. I like them because they're always in season, they're always fresh, and they hold their shape when you chop them. So I'm just gonna quarter the tomatoes. This is about 12 ounces of cherry tomatoes, or grape tomatoes as it were. And nowadays there are so many lovely sweet varieties of cherry tomatoes. Some of them almost taste like candy, they're so sweet. Yeah, I make this topping. I put it on top of chicken, I put it on top of fish, almost like a relish or a sauce. I definitely make this on taco night. And last little guy, there you are. All right, into the bowl they go. Let's take a look at those onions. Oh, they look good. They're softened, they're a little bit browned. Just what we're looking for. So now I'm gonna add the corn into the skillet. We're gonna cook the corn for about 4 minutes, let it get a little brown and toasty. All right. While the corn cooks, let's return our attention to the topping. We're gonna add a little bit of cilantro, and by a little, I mean a lot. I think the recipe calls for 4 tablespoons, quarter of a cup, thereabouts. I'm gonna add a ton because it is my favorite fresh herb. I'm just gonna chop it up, not too finely, kind of a coarse chop, and I am gonna include some of the stems. Obviously, I washed this already. Oh, that might look like double the amount of cilantro, which is perfect for me. All right, so into the tomatoes, most of the cilantro. All right, now for some scallions. We're gonna add 5 scallions. I wanna slice them thinly, but as I always do on the thicker ends, the white ends, I'm gonna slice them in half first. That way you just don't get a big chunk of scallion when you're eating. I can hear that corn sizzling away. Let's go check on it. Oh yeah, the sugars in the corn are starting to brown and toast. It adds such a killer flavor. All right, a couple more minutes for those. Back to the scallions. Again, just a nice thin slice. All right, into the bowl of tomatoes it goes. All right, last but not least, a little oil, little lime juice. About a tablespoon of each. Can't beat fresh lime juice. If you're ever tempted to buy that store-bought lime juice, just put it right back down. Stuff tastes like chemicals. It doesn't have that fresh lime fragrance that you want. And a tablespoon of olive oil, thereabouts. There we go. Some salt and pepper. And that's it. That's as simple as it gets. And again, I put this on everything. All right, I'm gonna set this aside. Let's take a look at that corn. Oh, you can see it's nice and brown. The sugars in the corn have come out and started to caramelize. That is the flavor that I love about this rice dish. All right, now I'm gonna add 4 cloves of garlic right into the skillet using a garlic press. Corn and garlic is delicious together. All right, let's scrape off the back side of the press. There we go. So I'm just gonna cook this garlic out about 30 seconds. You just want it to hit the oil, hit the hot pan, and get fragrant. All right, next up, just a little bit of spice. We're gonna add some cumin and some cayenne. For ground cumin, we're gonna add a teaspoon right into the pan. And for the cayenne, just a little bit, just a pinch. Pinch goes a long way. There we go. We're gonna let these spices cook out about a minute. A lot of spices really bloom and develop their flavor when they mix with oil before adding the liquid. So that's what we're doing here. We're blooming those flavors. Oh, that smells good. Next, we're gonna add the rice. Now here I have an interesting little contraption. This is 1 cup of long grain rice, but I've rinsed it. That rinses away any of that excess starch, so you get nice, distinct rice grains in the finished dish. And when you rinse it, you just put it in a fine mesh strainer, run under cold water. So I've had it sitting here, draining. Into the pan, the rinsed rice goes. We're gonna cook this with the spices in the heat, about a minute. Let the edges of the rice turn a little translucent. All right, that looks good. Next up, the broth. This is 3 cups of broth. Now, as I said, you can easily make this vegetarian. In fact, this was a vegetarian main dish at some point. I just like serving it as a side dish because it tastes so good with the flank steak. So you need 3 cups of broth. What broth you use is up to you. Vegetable broth keeps it vegetarian. This is chicken broth because I like the little bit of heartier flavor it gives. But again, if you have vegetarians coming for dinner, veg broth tastes delicious. You really want to make sure all the grains of rice are submerged into the liquid or they will taste raw. Last but not least, 2 cans of black beans. Again, I've got them in a little contraption here. This is a colander because I opened the can of beans, drained them, rinsed them, and I just had it sitting over a dog bowl, which is my prep bowl of choice, just to make sure to get all the excess water off. Into the pan, the black beans go. There we go. Now I'm just gonna put the lid on, bring it up to a simmer, then return it to medium-low, let it cook really gently, about 20 minutes until that rice is good and tender. All right, while this is simmering away, time to get out the steak. Oh, she's a beauty. flank steak, one of my all-time favorite cuts. I love the flavor. I don't mind that the texture is a little on the chewier side. I like that. Also, it's relatively inexpensive and you can gussy it up for so many different things. So when cooking flank steak, you can go as simple as just salt and pepper, but as I mentioned, I'm gonna put a little spice rub on it, kicks things up to make a little bit more flavorful, but not so spicy that it's not okay for kids, because there's always kids at this house and I want them to be able to eat whatever we're eating. So put that aside for a minute. Bring up a little bowl to make a spice mixture. First up, some chili powder. We're gonna add 2 tablespoons of chili powder, and the branded chili powder you use really can affect how spicy it is. So choose a chili powder that you like. All right, so 2 tablespoons. We're gonna add 2 tablespoons of ground cumin to this. There we go. Next up, some ground coriander, just a tablespoon of ground coriander. There we go. Obviously, I'm not being really finicky about leveling off the tablespoons. It's a spice rub, a little extra here and there, not a big deal. Now some kosher salt. We're gonna 1 tablespoon of kosher salt. All right, next up, some black pepper. 2 teaspoons of that. All right, 2 more spices. We have some crushed red pepper or red pepper flakes, depending on how you like to call them. 1/2 teaspoon of that. This last one's fun. It's a little bit of cinnamon. It just adds some warm spices. It doesn't taste sweet, but it adds that element to the spice rub that I really like. All right, 1/2 teaspoon of that. And that's it. Really all pantry-friendly ingredients. Nothing really out of the ordinary here. I'm gonna mix this all together. All right, onto the steak it goes. Now, if you notice, I have this steak on a rim baking sheet, but I've lined it with aluminum foil. This is my grill trick. I bring the raw food out on a foil-lined tray, and then while the food's cooking on the grill, I ball up the foil and I have a clean tray to bring the cooked food back in on. I'm also gonna use this to make it easy to add the spice rub without making a mess. Add the spice rub on both sides. Oh yeah. Like I said, this flank steak's a little on the smaller side, so there's a little extra rub that doesn't have anywhere to go. That's okay. Now, one trick I've learned over the years is I like to coat the steak with just a little bit of oil because it helps bloom those spices and bring out their flavor, but it also helps turn the spices into a nice crust. So just using a little spray oil, and you can just lightly spray the steak. Flip it over. All right, that's it. Steak's ready for the grill. I also have some tortillas and I'm gonna warm up on the grill. Just gotta wash my hands and head outside.
Love what you're watching? Take your cooking to the next level with our Essential membership. Get instant access to thousands of recipes, tips, techniques, product reviews, and step-by-step videos. Our Members app allows you to search by ingredient, set dietary preferences, and save your favorite recipes. For those looking to level up, our newest feature, ATK Classes, offers more in-depth instruction led by ATK experts, so you can gain greater confidence in the kitchen. Start your free trial by visiting the App Store or going to americastestkitchen.com/YouTube today.
All right, this grill, ooh, she's good and hot. I've been preheating it about 10-15 minutes with all the burners on high. That's how you preheat a gas grill. And while it's good and hot is when I'm gonna clean and oil the grill. So I'm just gonna use a nice grill brush, scrape off any bits from the last cooking I did. And now using a little bit of veg oil, and here I have a pair of nice long tongs, a nice wad of paper towels, and in this bowl, this is my grilling bowl, I don't know why, this is a little bit of veg oil. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rub the veg oil soaked towel over the hot grates. That oil will polymerize instantly, creating more of a nonstick surface, and it really just helps the grill grates stay nice and seasoned. If they catch on fire, it's all good. The fire will go out. All right. Ready to grill the flank steak right onto the hot grill, about 5 minutes aside. Now you notice I'm leaving the grill lid open on this grill. That's because this sucker packs a lot of BTUs. In fact, each of these burners is a whopping 25,000 BTUs, which is a pretty good grill. If your grill isn't this powerful, you probably want to put the lid down to help trap some of the heat so that the steak cooks through in time.
Old habits die hard. Always doing the cross section. That's partway through cooking. You switch that diagonal so you get that traditional cross-hatched look, which sometimes works, sometimes don't, but I always give it a try. Now I'm gonna flip it to the second side, go about another 5 minutes. So a flank steak is another thin cut, cooks really quickly, which is why you want a really hot grill to get some char before the steak overcooks. And temping it can be tricky because it can vary really dramatically from the thinner end to the thicker end. And by the time you find it with your instant read thermometer, you're probably gonna be overcooking it. So I do like to press on the steak, and it takes some time and some practice to figure out what feel you're looking for. But to get started, what you want to do is you want to press your finger on the outside, you know, where it's going to be more cooked. You can see how it feels, and then go right for the thickest center of the steak, and you can see how much more tender that center is, and you can use that as a gauge as you learn what to look for when pressing on a steak. That's still pretty rare, so a couple more minutes. Another good judge for knowing when your steak done is when the dog arrives, because my dog has a killer nose for medium rare, huh, Ziggy? He always comes out during the last minute of cooking. He's basically my timer. All right, so over here, nice and firm over there. A lot firmer. All right, time to have this come off the grill, putting it on the sheet pan. Now the sheet pan was lined with foil. I took that foil off, so the sheet pan is still clean. So the thing is, the steak is gonna continue to cook as it rests. It'll easily climb 5 to 10 degrees. And to help that along, I'm gonna tent it with foil. While the steak rests, let's cook a few tortillas. And these just take really a minute on the grill. By the time I get them all on the grill, that first one will be ready to flip. I also like how it picks up some of the spices left on the grill from the steak. Right back in the tortilla warmer. All right, and that's it. Time to go inside and make a plate. All right, the steak is off the grill and has been resting for a little bit. It's been 20 minutes for that rice, so let's check it out. Oh, yes. I love this dish. You can see the corn that's toasted, the black beans are heated through, and to tell if the rice is done, you want to poke down, see if there's any liquid in the bottom. I don't see any. I can tell the rice is good and tender. Just gonna fluff it a little bit. Try to get those beans mixed in a little bit because they have a tendency to float on the top. I love this rice. It has so much of that garlic in it. Oh, it's delicious. All right, so that's good. Now for the tomatoes on top. Recipe says to sprinkle them on top. I like to just put them in the middle so everyone can get some tomatoes, but they can see on the outside that it's rice, beans, and corn, so they know what they're getting into. All right, time for the steak. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, yes. All right, time to slice in and see how we did. Oh, I love seeing that nice rosy interior. Of course, it's a little more well done on the ends, a little more rare in the middle. Again, perfect for company because some people like it a little more well, some people like it a little more rare. And actually, flank steak, to me, tastes good on the medium side because it is a bit chewy. Oh, hi, Ziggs. Look who showed up just in time for dinner. Right in the center, you can see that beautiful medium, nice and rosy. That's how I like it. Oh. Now to get this onto a platter, what I like to do is use my slicing knife, slide it right under all the pieces of meat. Transfer it right over to a clean plate. Nice clean platter of steak. Love putting some lime wedges just on the side. Put a little pile of freshly picked leaves, just if you want to incorporate some onto your steak. All right, so we have rice and beans, we have tortillas. What goes better with all this than a little ice cold beer? Not just any beer, Mexican beer, my favorite, Modelo. All right, time to make a nice hearty plate. Starting off with a little of the rice and beans. Some steak. I'm going for the pieces right in the middle. Oh yeah. This guy. Last but not least, nice warm, freshly grilled tortilla. Oh, this is an iconic summer meal. Good enough for company, good enough for you just to sit at home by yourself and eat it. Starting with the beans and the rice. I love that the rice is nicely cooked, but it has that corn in it that got a little caramelized, and that just gives the whole thing kind of a summery vibe.
A little flank steak, a little bit of limes. You gotta get a little bit of that crust because that crust is where all the spices are. The spices have flavor on their own, but that little bit of char just makes you taste the grill a little bit more. Gives it a nice crust on the outside. Oh, a little sip of Modelo. It just tastes like summer. And let's not forget, we still have that key lime cheesecake for dessert. It is time for the grand finale, the key lime cheesecake. It is set up nicely in the fridge. You can see it's not moving or jiggling, which is perfect. Now to unmold this, it's easiest if you use a wet damp towel like this, something nice and big. And I used hot water, so this is warm. Just gonna drape it on the outside of the cheesecake, let it sit for just a minute. If you think about it, this is thickened with gelatin. So as the heat and the warmth travels through the metal to that outer rim of cheesecake, it's just gonna melt that gelatin ever so slightly, help it loosen from the edges of the pan. Much better than going around with a paring knife, which I've done. Paring knife makes dragging marks, whereas this is just a lot better. All right, I'm gonna rub down the outside. All right, no time like the present. Gonna unhinge the sides. Gentle, gentle. Ah, nothing but net. This cheesecake is so good. Now to get it off the bottom of the pan, it's not really stuck to the bottom at all, the crust. I'm just gonna take a nice, long, thin, flexible spatula, slide it right under, and then you can slide it right off the pan bottom, right onto a cake stand, and there you go. Nice, clean, easy. And that's why I love working with these Icebox cheesecakes, because it makes you look like a rock star, and it's really not that hard. Now to garnish, you don't need to do this, but I think it looks good. I have some lime slices that I sliced wafer thin, and now what you want to do is you want to take a lime slice, dip it in sugar, and then you can just kind of arrange it on the top. Sometimes you can slice up through the middle of the lime slice to help it make that design. Also helps you determine all the slices. I like to get anywhere from 8 to 10 slices out of a cheesecake this size. And if you have company, just, it just looks really impressive. And it's just not that hard. Looks elegant, even though it's just an Icebox cheesecake. Oh, that's a hearty slice, and I'm not apologizing for it. And you can see that, look at that. I love this cake. It is so easy to serve. You get perfect slices every time because that crust is super sturdy. Don't mind if I do. Every time I make it, I'm so surprised at the texture. It is not dense at all. It is airy, it tastes like cream cheese, and it tastes like limes, not too sweet. And that crust is one of my favorite, made with the animal crackers. Perfect ending to a perfect summer dinner. See you next time.
If you're ready to take your cooking to the next level, head over to americastestkitchen.com and get a free trial of our ATK Essential membership. While you're there, you can sign up for our free email newsletters and download our app. So, what are you waiting for?